Thank you guys so much for coming on here. We're so excited. I have my first guest speaker of the Undoing here, a super amazing friend that actually lives in the same town as me. And
Yay.
I'm super excited. Her name is Sharon, and she's actually going to introduce herself in just a moment. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about just, again, the undoing and a little bit of what that looks like in Sharon's life. So join us, and we're excited to have you here. But Sharon, before we go into the undoing and everything that's happening in your life right now, please just tell everyone about yourself, who you are, and whatever you want to share with them.
Yes. So my name is Sharon So, and I've been married 3 years. And I have a son who is like 2 years and 3 months old. Do the math. Our sweet honeymoon baby. And yeah, so I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I recently just quit my job today. This is my first time really just not working and not having something in place as my next step since I was like 16 or 17. So really excited about that process that I feel called to do. And so a little bit about me is I feel, as I explain myself or describe myself, I feel a little insecure about the labels, what wife and mom mean, and even just as being a non-worker. Like those things are something I'm super intimidated by what someone thinks of when they think of those things, because um, I hold things very dear to myself. And I also know, it's new for me to be a wife and mom. And so just playing into what I think society calls of those roles has been something that I've been trying to undo for myself.
Okay, well, there we go. That's really awesome. Okay, so today we're then diving into motherhood, wifehood, what that looks like. And yeah, so then just tell us some more about what that's looked like for you.
Mhm.
Just kind of like the image that you've had in your mind of what you felt like you needed to be or had to live up to,
Mhm.
or any, lies, beliefs, triggers, trauma that has, come into motherhood and being a wife in your marriage.
Yeah, so actually, for me, being a mother has been easier than the process of becoming a wife. Even though becoming a mom was like super surprise. After we were married like 2 months, just finding out we got pregnant on our honeymoon. But yeah, for me, I think because I was such an independent person and because I did so many things on my own, coming into marriage, I think I just had a lot of expectations on my marriage. And slowly, God is just shedding those away and allowing me to see the gift that marriage is outside of my expectations and his plan for marriage in that. So that has been something that God has been teaching me is his plan in choosing my husband for me and just giving us this connection before we even really thought it all through, as in whether this would work out or not. It was just crazy. God just let okay, I'll just be honest with you. How it started was I'd known Eric for probably like 8 years before we got married, and one day we were hanging out, and God just said, "That's the man you need to submit to." Like, I wouldn't say he said it like that, but that was in my heart. Like all of a sudden, I had this desire to like listen to what he had to say, and I was like, "Okay, first time in my life, I've really ever just wanted to listen to what a man had to say." And then after that, because I'm a diver into what I feel called to do, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And the next day he called me and he told me that he was interested in me. And I said, well, let's get married. I mean, of course, I let him kind of say that, but in my mind, I was sold after that. I said, okay, this is what God wants. Like, this is crazy. It's all happening. And I never thought to think, to figure myself out, figure all the things out prior to. I was like, okay, well, then let's do it. We got married a few months later. And then that's when all the dust settled. And then I was like, so wait, what exactly were you doing here, God? Because I'm not seeing the puzzles fitting together. Um, and that's because I thought I knew what the picture was supposed to look like, right? And then God just like blew me away. And it's been a process, total process of undoing me. Like, I think we've talked about it before, just peeling the layers away of this onion, just failure after failure, and me just being so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, I'm just getting to the raw of you. You're not failing me. I'm just going after you, right? And so I think so many times in society we create like this polished ball, like this is what this looks like, so we can just sit it on the shelf and I'll admire it, I'll compare it. And God's like, no, 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 that's not it at all. And there's so many layers. And oftentimes, the enemy will come and he's here to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's exactly what he did for me the first few years of my marriage. And I'm so excited to be here just to like encourage people who may be going through that. Or maybe you're not going through that, but maybe you know someone who's going through that. Like, totally let them know that there is a reason and a purpose and you're not failing. God is just literally, I see a movement now where he's just trying to get to the core of people. He's really trying, just the raw version of who he created them to be, and he wants to use that.
That's really amazing. And so kind of going back to like the beginning of before you even got married, because you really felt like, okay, God told you this is the man to marry and you just like went for it. Like looking back now, do you feel like that was still the wise thing to do? Or do you feel like maybe God actually wanted you in a place of relationship where you're learning about each other, about yourself, and then jumping into marriage? Because, just even kind of give or take now, I mean, even for my marriage as well, is that we had a very short engagement and we kind of took it into marriage where we're now trying to figure this all out. But, a lot of people feel like that maybe they are ready for marriage when God's still doing things in their lives, undoing things so that wouldn't have to go into marriage with them, So what did that look like for you, or how do you feel about that now?
Yes. So I remember many nights, literally just outside under the stars, like, God, are you sure about this? Like, are you sure about this? Because I wasn't giving up, but I was surrendering my dreams of Africa. I was surrendering like my goals in life. I wasn't sure. I mean, I felt intimidated by the idea of someone choosing to love me, knowing who I am all the time, right? Like knowing all these things about me. And as much as I wanted to show who I truly was, there's just blinders on a little bit, But I will say it's totally between you and God. And what I wish I would have done perhaps was maybe take into consideration my parents, giving them a little more time to adjust to the idea, and even just listening a little bit more to wise counsel. But I will say for my personality, it really did work out, like having the commitment in place when we're going through all of this. Because I was always like, quality of life is super important to me. And so anytime there was a relationship where I felt like I was starting to become unstable, or if there was starting to be a codependency or something coming between me and God, I didn't want that anymore. I immediately would just be like, okay, this is done. No emotions attached.
Sorry,
Like
say that again.
it would. Say which part again?
Sorry, you said, yeah, just the thing kind of lagged, but you said you didn't want that anymore. Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
So anytime I felt that there was something coming between me and God, or me and my goals and dreams, it was like no problem for me to cut it off. It was like, okay, well, that's not going to work out then. So having that commitment in place of, well, I committed to this guy. I know God told me to marry you, and I couldn't just leave, right? There was, especially being pregnant, I really think that God knew what he was doing there, because I didn't want, um, it was, I didn't want anything to happen to mine and Eric's relationship. Like, I knew I loved him and we had this baby coming, and I knew I wanted to work it out. So that really just pushed me into like, okay, well, I'm committed to him. I don't want to give up on that. And we have this baby coming. So God, you take over, because what I'm doing is not working. So I definitely think if to do what God is calling you to do, and maybe listen to counsel that God has put in place in your life at that time, and just look at all the different things, like how it all came together, where you're at, even the church you're in, just all those things they're lining up. But definitely make sure that you really feel that, in your gut intuition, that God is calling you to do this.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And we have that feeling. We know when it's not right or when it's wrong. It's just the conviction that we feel, our intuition. But so what have you then in this time,
Mhm.
as a woman, because very much in marriage, right, we can always blame the other person or point the finger on the other person, but
Yes.
what in this time of marriage have you learned about yourself, the role of a woman, of a wife, of Sharon?
Mhm.
What undoing, peeling have you done, or what has God allowed you to do in your marriage thus far?
Yeah, so I feel like one of the big things was realizing that I was being molded. I was being molded. I've been being molded. So I think, like I went through depression, postpartum depression. I went through even prepartum depression, like just the first stages of marriage, just um, not living up to my own standards of who I was. I think that's what hurt more than even just the expectations I had on my husband. It was just me failing myself.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think God finally told me, because I was like, well, I'm not really an anxious person. I'm not really a depressed person. And I just kept holding on to who I used to be and
And
saying,
typically, what did that look like when you had those feelings and thoughts that you were failing yourself? What
mhm.
did that look like?
So maybe like, I wasn't, when my husband came home, there wasn't food on the table. I mean, from things as simple as to like, oh, I wanted a clean house and a pretty home, and just I wanted to be a hard worker, and I was just like sick my first few trimesters, and like I couldn't smell meat, and I was not cooking any meals. I literally would throw up at the side. Just these things that I thought, okay, this is what the world says a good wife is. And then also like for myself, like if there was something like a special holiday coming up or my birthday coming up, just these things that I knew didn't matter. I was like, this girl who went to Africa by herself, she's getting all upset about her birthday that he picked up a gift on the way home on my birthday, like just these things, and feeling like I wasn't myself. And so it was just me holding myself to the standard of who I was,
Mm.
right? And not allowing for the transition of who God was molding me to be. And not finding value in who God says I am and who he claimed on me as my birthright, like the value he gave to me as I was being formed in my womb when he breathed life into me, right? Just totally forgot about that value at all. And for the first time in my life, I was jealous of other women, right? Like it was my first time playing a very feminine role, and I felt like I really sucked at it. And it was like, see, this is why I didn't want to get married. This is why, I knew I was going to be bad at it, and I was right. Like. So
Yeah.
I was just kind of battling out with God, like, what were you thinking? Like, I wasn't meant to fail this bad. I was never meant to see myself like this. I was never, and just seeing pictures of happy families, and was like, how do you make it look so easy? Like, I'm literally struggling, and I had high standards for myself. I'd done this and been through this, and it was like, I can't even like love my husband, a man who's very faithful and loyal. So it was really just a lot of God saying, um, and it came to that point in my deep depression where I finally had to say, you know what, God, I'm done. Like, I am done trying to control the situation. I am done expecting and needing myself to look like this. If you can take this girl hiding in the bathtub, crying, just not wanting to be seen, and just contemplating how can I even take care of my baby when it comes, if you can take this and make it into a ministry or just use it for your glory, then please let that be what this is. Instead of seeing it as such a devastating failure, God just kind of started giving me new lens to say, hey, um, what if I'm calling you to something greater? And what if I'm just peeling back? What if I'm just trying to expose the raw Sharon to Sharon?
Yeah.
What if I just want you to get to know who I created you to be instead of who you've tried to be all these years? And I didn't even know I was trying to be that. Like, I genuinely thought all the things I were doing were just things I was called to do. And God was like, no, I'm calling you to be something greater. But it truly, you have to go under that fire. You have to, and I'm not saying it has to be difficult. I definitely think I maybe added a bit of that difficulty for myself. But there's definitely a time where you come face to face with God, and he's like, this is who I am. Are you willing to go this route? Like, are you willing for that journey? And in my devastation, I said, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask next is like how did you allow God to come in and intercede? What did that look like for you? Quiet time, did he just begin bringing people into your life? How did you see him kind of tell you, hey, I'm here, like, let's do this together, let's change things?
Yeah, so it kind of probably started with me wanting to get back into shape and start caring about my health postpartum. And
Mhm.
that just got directly related that to my mental diet. And so he just started to really show me that what was coming out was what I had put in. So when in the past, when I had spent quiet time with God, it was like I gleaned for that moment. And as soon as I would get excited and pumped up, and it was like I would take it in and then immediately just like use it, right? And so God was showing me that what we need to read in his word and why we need consistency is because we need to plant seeds for our future. So it just showed to me how much I had just taken from his word and gotten in the moment and gotten in the emotion and then immediately left the situation instead of sitting with that, asking God to plant those seeds for my future self.
Mhm.
So it really just turned into me really investing in myself with God, and then like literally begging God, like, God, I'm too weak. I can't do this. I just had another fight again. I know. It was like he was giving me these tiny moments after I did what I did that said, hey, you know what? It was like the fights didn't last as long. Maybe they didn't last into the next day, or just, it was
Yeah.
like slowly I noticed these small changes. And every time I saw that small God, God showing up for me, it was like I just craved more of it and begged for more of it and said, in leaving notes for myself, even setting alarms. Because as a mom, it's so easy. It's like 3 a.m., the day's gone, the house is a mess. You're like, I don't want to read my Bible. I fall asleep. So
Yeah.
it was really just begging God, like, help me change my diet, put people in my life, even just like begging my husband, like, I can't wake up in the morning. Please help me get out of bed in the morning. Like, please, just literally doing anything I can and not being too prideful to ask for help. Now I was too prideful to ask for help from other people, but in the small circle, you have that one person that you can go to and just slowly increasing your circle of people that you can rely on.
No, that's really good. That's really good. I was going to ask another thing in regards to that. Okay, yeah. So, just where do you see yourself today as a wife? Like, just as God's moving, as God's just changing your heart and unpeeling the layers. Where are you today?
Yeah, so as God has given me grace to be less judgmental of myself and to see myself through his eyes more, it is also bled into my husband and my child. So, if my son's throwing a tantrum, or if my husband is maybe not doing what I think he should be doing at that time of day, instead of just being like, oh my goodness, like, Victor, please, at first you try to give him a toy or distract them or figure out what it is, and then when there's nothing left, it was like I couldn't handle his tears. And it was because in the past I couldn't even handle my own tears. So as God was like teaching me to work with myself and use grace on myself, it was like it was just flowing outward. So
Mm,
I see myself now as someone who has a little more grace, and a little more of taking it to God instead of just like immediately trying to deal with the issue. Um,
yeah.
and also, what I was going to say, it goes into that picture that you took of me. One of my recent posts I just shared where I had like words, a loneliness, fear, unworthiness, unfit, too ugly, misunderstood, crazy, unreliable, just all these things. I had on one arm, and on the other arm, just things that God says that I am. And these are narratives. It was almost God just like showed me a picture of like, there's this is who you say you are, this is how you're feeling, and then this is what I claim for you. You're forgiven, you're never alone, you're complete, you're perfect for your calling, you're supported, you're understood, and not only that, you're worth it all. It's not just that you're worthy, but you're worth everything that I've done for you. You're worth being there in the dark moments. You're worth just me pursuing you, and realizing whichever narrative I accept for myself is also the narrative that I'm handing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you start to see that, and then you start to realize, I want to love more, I want to be someone, and just asking yourself, who is it that you truly, in your heart, in your gut, like, who is it that you really feel called to be, and why is that so intimidating?
Yeah.
Why? And you just start that process of just like undoing, just let it all come out, and just really just have that intimacy with God. And it doesn't have to look like pouring into your Bible, like, yes, please read into his word. It renews our mind, but literally just talking to God. Like the other day, I shared a social media post and it was from my heart. And I remember afterwards, I was so intimidated, I wanted to delete it. And, I just had to pray. I was like, God, I feel so insecure right now. I feel like I was just being too deep, too serious. I'm not putting out there what people want Instagram to be, but I felt called to do it. God, please just take my emotions away. Just talking to him like a friend. Oh, and he showed up. I fell asleep after that. I wasn't in bed. And I'm not generally an anxious person, so I didn't think to pray for myself when it came to anxiety. Because I used to be happy-go-lucky. But then I found myself in anxiety as I started to truly become who I am, because it's not who my family knows me as. It's not who my church knows me as. And it's not even who Eric knows me as yet. And so it's like they know who I am, and I wasn't putting on a show, but I didn't know who I was deep down. And getting to know that person is so uncomfortable coming out, because it's like, who do you think you are? And it's not even for like, you're not even trying to shine. You're legit just trying to be a vessel for God, right?
Right.
But the enemy immediately was like, well, you fought with your husband today. You got really annoyed at your son. You look pretty crazy. So why should you be speaking? Like, why should you open your mouth? And God says, like, excuse me? Like, let me give you all the reasons why I chose her. So just trusting the process.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. So awesome. Like we're just worthy enough, like God just meets us where we are. He meets us where we are no matter what, whether we're, in a corner of a bathroom, drugged up, whether we're that mom who just feels like she wants to pull out her hair, whatever the case may be, like he is always there with us. And that's just so beautiful, because we all, like, he just wants to use us, we're his disciples, we're his children. And like, just, hearing your voice, you're able to speak to people that someone else wouldn't be able to, and I remember, like, I love your Instagram too, which you guys need to check out for sure, because I just love your vulnerability on it. And you can see women need that, like, the response you're getting from just being vulnerable and just throwing it out there, no matter how the enemy tries to make you feel, you know who you are, a child of God, God's daughter, and he's using you, just like you said, as a vessel. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that's going to go for you. And and as we're just coming together, just like latching on with just women, one by one, and just forming the sisterhood and freeing everyone from just these lies and chains and bondages and childhood traumas, triggers that are holding them back, seriously. So but yeah, so like what would you say today? Mainly we talked about marriage today, and we'll probably just keep that, marriage, and of course who you are as a woman. But my first question is, what would you want to leave to tell someone today? We'll start off with just a single woman she's still single, but she is, desiring marriage. She's preparing herself as, to be a wife. What would you want to tell her today? Yeah, we'll start with that.
So all those desires that you have, let them be found in Christ first, right? These even romance, like the longing that I have for my husband to see me, to see the hard work that I do, to see that I juggle my son on a hip and I cleaned houses, and I was willing to do anything, or even just to see your beauty, or just for them to see how much you think about them, right? I realized all of those things are already seen and known by Christ, right? And even the moments that you can't remember when you were a child and you didn't feel good enough, which has led you to, the path you felt on now, or even the moments where you felt so amazing, whether it was through your parent or this and that, like, God has already seen it, known it, and okayed it and said, nothing is too far gone and nothing is too good for you. So, whichever direction you're leaning on, you don't even have to be a sad person. Like, there are plenty of people who are waiting for marriage and totally happy,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then there are some people who, like, I have a friend, long for that husband, long just to share their love with them, whichever end of the spectrum you're on. And even if you're not, looking for a husband, you're single, let your needs be met in Christ. Just remember that our longings and desires are always meant to lead us to the afterlife. We are so much more than this life. And we were bought with a price. Like, your value is your birthright. Your birthright is your value, whichever way it's supposed to go or say. Like, don't forget that. Like, my goal and my desire for everyone is, can we carry out our heavenly mission on earth, realizing that our rewards are Christ. Our rewards are that one day all the desires that we have, and we can be satisfied. Paul, I think it was Paul, excuse me, said, for whichever state I am, to be content. Right? I'm not saying that we are an insatiable beings just because we're here on earth, but we're spirit beings. But to remember that the desires we have are to remind us that this world is not our home, right? And to have grace with yourself, to have grace for your future husband. And, in their process, I think it's really important to have guidelines for what God is asking you to look for in a husband, like, it's okay to have a few standards. I know for me, it was somebody who I just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt would, like, do whatever it was that God asked them to do, even though his life did not look perfect when I found him. So just knowing in your heart what you feel like God is calling for a husband in you, and just keeping your eye on that and praying for it.
Yeah, that's really good. Awesome. And what about for the woman who is already married? So, whether she's a newlywed, just getting into marriage, month 1, month 2, month 3, first year, or even that woman who's been married for years now. I think that we all can be in different seasons as, wives, and it again goes back to just our development, right, as just an individual. But what's on your heart to share with them today?
Just go to God about what he wants your marriage to look like. Right? Ask him, say, God, give me a vision for my marriage, and let that be my standard. Right? Like, God, what in the world? And just releasing all the fears that could entail by surrendering your future. Like, I've never really wanted a home. I kind of wanted a nomadic tiny house, like maybe missionary type living, and we have a beautiful home. And during this quarantine, we've been working on it. And I've had to stop and ask myself, like, hold on a second. Are you getting attached to this? If God called you to leave this home after you just put all this work and detail into it, is that okay with you? So just wherever state we're at, ask ourselves, can we surrender? Can I surrender this now and just totally trust the process of where God wants my marriage to be?
What about someone that seems to kind of just like be in conflict currently, just in a season of conflict back and forth with their husband? And I know you and we both have been there, of just like, when is this going to stop? Where's the end? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? What do I need to do? What would you like to tell them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say just, remember that the enemy, going back to the enemy, really is to still kill and destroy, right? And so remembering that God comes to bring life into our life. So seeking that life, that diet of God's word, and maybe even just one friend who you can truly confide in, that will pray for you and, like, have your back in prayer, but maybe not condone all the things you're feeling, but will hear you out, right? That's so powerful to just let that out. And sometimes we go through that because we don't want to share what's going on in our life, because we think we'll get over it, and it's not that big of a problem. And just also, like, ask God to reveal to you, what are there any traumas in your life that need to be healed, and even in your husband's life, right? A lot of times things from our childhood can come up in our marriage because we're coming face to face with somebody who sees us kind of like our parents did. They're going through the ups and downs with us. And I'm reading a book, I think it's called Becoming Myself, where she says to go back and pray over that, go back and embrace that moment, go back to that, the child of yourself, and just speak God's truths over that, and just find a few verses to cling to, and remind yourself that you are supported, you are seen, you are loved. You are whole without your husband.
Yes.
You are whole without your husband, and you can't give from a narrative that you're not holding for yourself. So if you don't feel forgiven, if you don't feel worth it all, if you don't feel, all these things, you can't necessarily give that to your husband. And I'm preaching to myself here, right? Which is why this is the hardest question for me to answer. I'm not saying like we're fighting all the time, but these are I'm in this process of learning grace, learning faith, and also just learning to surrender my expectations.
Yeah. And something that's just on my heart, also that I've gone through is like community, not doing this by yourself. Because I know for, even you just personally, Sharon, in times where I was going through things in my marriage, it was just very much me and my husband, but being able to have a friendship, a connection with someone else that's a wife that's been through already what I've been through, and really helped me see like, man, okay, I'm not going crazy, or like, I actually, this is normal, and really brought like a peace over me that allowed me to not feel like so like condemned or like just down of like, man, I keep messing up. What's going on with me? And also just, very much having community, a mentor, counsel, anything like that. Cause that's also something that, I was fortunate to have to also learn about, different things in our brains, the ways our brain works, and things that just related and just totally made sense of why this is happening in my marriage or what is causing this to happen. So community is so important, not walking in this alone. You're walking in this maybe also with your husband, but you just need someone else that is a woman who's been through it, who can just speak to you about this and help you go through this. So yeah.
Yes. And not taking for granted the things that lead you back to God. I know for me, like with my husband, if he, like I see God using him so much in my life, even on the things that I'm like, why? Oh my goodness, that's so crazy. And it always led me back to God. And I think I'm the kind of person when things are peaceful and calm, like I'm just happy. And sometimes I can just like take God's joy and not like dive into his truths very much. And I've noticed like when I was single, I was like a very like simple, happy-go-lucky person, but my relatability was not always there. Like I feel like my ministry has really changed, and I really enjoyed.
Wait, so sorry, you said my ability was not, sorry, it cut out again.
Oh yeah, my relatability was not always there. Like I was in a season and I thought we were all meant to be super happy. And I remember someone telling me like, I don't necessarily think that joy is the end goal here. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like we are meant to be happy. And I truly was just happy all the time, very optimistic person. And at first, I was like in tears, not only because of the fight, but because my day was full of fighting. Like, how could I let my day be like that? My day should be up here. And it truly in community and in relatability and in partnerships like this, I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it to go back and just to have this like simple, joyful, God is good life. Now I'm like, oh, God is good. Oh my goodness. You feel it in your bones because you've cried out from them, right? Like you're just like, and so if my husband were like me and had just been this super like happy-go-lucky, like didn't care about anything, just did everything that I wanted, I think I may have just not had this amazing experience with God where I literally got to understand the depths of his willingness to be with me. And so, and as Christians,
And you
Sorry.
continue to, like, it doesn't stop, you know?
Yes.
Continue to.
And
That's
as
beautiful.
Christians, we should be asking, like, God, put it all on me. I've got it. Don't give it to them. Don't give it to those who don't have you. Like, put it all on me. I want to shout your name in the midst of all of it. Like, obviously I'm not asking for anything to happen to my child, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like, they're going through, the world goes through problems. Like, the enemy does not care, you know, whether you have God or not on your side. Like, he's just out there doing his thing. So it's really important for us to remember, like, who are we? Like, yes, God blesses us. Yes, God, you know, wants abundance for his children, but like, who am I to think that, trials should never happen? Like, I should want to be able to relate and to be like, hey, I know somebody who is a closer than a brother. I like just all the things that God is. We should be able to know firsthand through experience.
Yeah.
Like, you can trust God and not just be like, hey, God is, I've been happy for 30 years now. You should come along. Like, but just really, like, inside, just be able to be like, oh, yes, isn't that so painful? But let me tell you what God can do with that.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. Two things I want to say really quickly is
Yes.
yes, like I love that too. And again, God brings couples together for a reason. Like he brought, Eric to you, he brought Miles to me for a reason, and we are totally all different, right? And that's what God uses. Like he uses our strengths for our husband's weaknesses and vice versa, and
Mhm.
he's just undoing everything out of
Yes.
our husbands, out of us, and
Mhm.
just and the beautiful thing of that is like you just connect and just become more of one as this is
Mhm.
all happening. So that's so beautiful. And then also, like, yeah, our what we go through, that's our testimony. How are we able to relate and share, or connect with other people who may be going through this, when we want or just have this perfect life where we, someone's talking to us and we're like, um I actually can't relate with you. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but like these things allow us to relate and connect, and to just bring testimonies to people that need to hear this, to just like you, when you shared with me, hey, I've been through that, I know what that looks like, that brought me just hope and peace
Mhm.
and like a new understanding. So marriage is definitely, I always say it's a challenge, but it's so rewarding at the
Mhm.
same time, because of all the fruit that comes out of it
Mm.
afterwards. It's just not the surface life of, hey, let's do Netflix and chill every
Yes.
day, and like just be that, and just be cute couples. But like, man, if we're just undoing and just becoming just strong for, ourselves and the people that, God puts in our lives. So yeah, no, that's so amazing. So yeah, I think this was really great. I'm so happy. Like I love what we got to talk about, our first um one-on-one session.
Yes.
Don't know where God is all going to take this. Who knows? Maybe we'll have more than one, in the future. But this was so beautiful, Sharon. And seriously, thank you for jumping on here with me and doing this. And I just really believe that this is going to just touch women. And if you guys want to reach out to Sharon, if you guys want to reach out to me, all of the information is going to be in just the notes below this video. Sharon's, I'll go ahead and add her Instagram so you can follow her and also see the really cool, just vulnerable topics and
Oh,
captions that
I
she
don't even do it that much. It's
no,
mostly
it's
my
really
son.
beautiful. It's really beautiful,
Thank you.
to follow, honestly, and it's what we need. Like she said at the beginning, it's what we need more on Instagram. No more surface, no more hiding, just being real and vulnerable. And I really love that. That's what I'm all about. And so yeah, I'll go ahead and add her information, and well, I also have an awesome email list for women. So if you would like to join this community, please go ahead and check out the link that's also below and join our women's community. But yeah, we are wrapping it up for today. Literally, the sun is like setting and it's getting darker in my room because I don't have the light on. But super excited. I'm having a baby well, her due date is in 2 weeks. So who knows if I'll be able to get in another video before then. Otherwise, it's been such a perfect place to leave off with you, Sharon. And I'm excited to see what else God brings into this channel. So
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for tuning in, for just sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. And thank you guys for tuning in today. And is there anything else you want to say?
I was gonna
It
say
looks
thank
like
you,
it.
Denise, because Denise has been a huge person in my life that has really just, by her being herself, has allowed me to be myself. And just, I don't know, she's just such an amazing woman. I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited to watch her videos. I'll probably skip this one because after this I'll probably
No,
get really insecure and be like, what did I even say? A
no, it was
lot of times
beautiful. It was all
passions overtake me and I don't even like know what I'm saying. But, and I also really quickly just wanted to say, if you are really, 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 really struggling right now, and if you are in the depths of depression, it's not as simple as just doing the things we talked about. Like,
right.
definitely reach out. Definitely, like, that season is so intense and it can be so long, and like, it is not, there's no simple step out of it.
Yeah.
But definitely cling to the hope in Christ. Like, definitely, I mean, Jesus is so present. Just notice him, and also like reach out to us, because Denise and I have dreams of getting women together and just hearing from you guys and just wanting to minister. So definitely keep us accountable for that.
Yes, yes, yes. Please reach out to us on Instagram, like just even direct messaging. We would love to pray for you, connect with you. You know, even if you just watch this video and we don't know you, just please don't be a stranger. We're not here to create this platform and just have you watch, but we just want to connect and get to know and create relationships. So thank you so much again. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
And we will see you soon.